Archer commanders are obviously my specialty. Literally an archer channel called Archer Syndicate. You would think that I have a lot of expertise around archers, and I like to think that I do. And I've been seeing a lot of recent trends with archer commanders as of 2025. After the showing, at least, of what Buy Key is going to do in the open field, I've had a lot of thinking about what archers could be like in Rise of Kingdoms in the next couple of months up to a year. And today, I'm going to be looking at the current state of archers. I'm going to go over the current commanders, their current open field power, their current future, and a few other things to look at what archers are really doing right now as of 2025. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they miserable? Are they overpowered? What do I think about archer marches right now? I have 3 expertise archer marches. It's the only march that I run, so I get a lot of open field reports for it. And I've seen a lot of testing of archer commanders versus different troop types. So if you're interested in archer commanders, you want to know what they're doing currently, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, the first thing I think we should look at when it comes down to archers is the current commanders, and more specifically, their top 3 or so marches. And now I'm just going to ballpark these marches. You can sometimes optimize or switch them around. So for example, if I talk about Nebu or YSG, you could switch them interchangeably. So if I'm talking about YSG with a commander, generally you could put Nebu in that place. So archers are quite versatile in that regard, even nowadays. A lot of archer commanders can be swapped. YSG Nebu can be swapped. YSG Nebu and Ashurbanipal are pretty much all interchangeable. Generally, that is what you can expect. But when it comes down to like the top 3 archer marchers, in my opinion, we're currently looking at the best one being Zulang Herman, the second best being a Shajar with an Ashurbanipal, and the third best being Shajar or Boudica Prime with Ashurbanipal and switching to Shajar with YSG or Shajar with Philip II. And that's generally the top 3 archer marches as of right now. And if we compare these 3 marches to other troop types, we're in a bit of a weird situation. Cavalry, there's a 3 march mutable. Cavalry don't have a very good 3 marches, but generally they're 3 marches. You're going to have Hauche Bing with Arthur Pendragon, which is pretty much absolutely meta. Nevsky with Joan Prime, which is also pretty much absolutely meta. And if you want 3 marches, you can do like Arthur Pendragon with Subutai, Hauche Bing with Belisarius, and still Nevsky Joan, or Hauche Bing with William, or you can split around your commanders to try and get those 3 marches. So you can see 2 very meta marches, 1 not so meta march. And for infantry, their mutable is just insane. You've got Liu Che with probably an Alex if you're going to run 3 marches, but if you're running just 1 march, you can do Liu Che with Bai Qi, the new infantry commander. If you're running 2 marches, you'll do Liu Che, Bai Qi, Ragnar Prime with Scipio Prime. And if you're doing 3 marches, you'll probably do Liu Che with Alex, Ragnar Prime with Scipio Prime, and then Bai Qi with a William Wallace primary. That's generally the 3 march mutable you'd probably want to run for infantry, and it's insanely overpowered. Bai Qi with William is pretty meta, even though William is not the most overpowered. From early testing, we've seen that he's really good with Bai Qi. CPO with Ragnar, or Ragnar primary, CPO secondary, is insane. It's a double AoE beast, it's got really good debuffs, it's got really good stats, and it can hold its own on the field. And finally, a Alex with a Liu Che is still one of the best marchers in the game as of right now, to the point it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if we compare these 2 mutables to archers, infantry with 3 meta marches, cavalry with 2 really meta marches, and 1 meh march if you go to 3, archers have 0 really meta marches. Even Zulang with Herman nowadays is kind of struggling on the open field. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's not as strong as it used to be relative to other marches. Having 2 double AoE commanders isn't a very big deal, to be honest. Zulang's AoE is not the best in the game anymore. Bai Qi is going to be releasing soon. I think it's 2300 or 2400 damage factor, which is way higher, or smite damage, which is just way higher than Zulang's. And Herman Prime only has a 3 target AoE, and his debuff isn't as good nowadays, because when you think about it, a lot of commanders aren't even dealing skill damage. So when we look at a 3 march archer mutable, the best march is Zulang with Herman, and that's not even an absolute meta march in my opinion. In my opinion, Liu Che with Alex, William Wallace with Bai Qi, Sepia with Ragnar, Arthur Pendragon with Hauche Bing, and Nevsky with Joan, all those 5 marches could be better than Zulang with Herman. The only march that might not be better is Nevsky Joan, where Zulang Herman could probably beat it out in that regard. But 4 of the 5 marches for the other troop types are much better than Zulang with Herman, and archers don't even make that top 5 list generally. So when you look at it, The best Archer March isn't in the top 5. The other two are abysmal. Boudica is way too old to still be a meta commander. She's going on to 3 years now in the next couple of months, or literally the next month. And then you've got commanders like YSG, who are still in the meta, and even though Alex is in the meta for infantry, he is kind of different. The reason being, Alex has a more unique kit. YSG, quite literally, just has damage. His whole entire kit is damage. There is no uniqueness to his kit, unlike other commanders, such as Alex, who can work in a different regard. So generally, YSG, he's in a bit of a different situation compared to Alex, where he shouldn't really be in the Archer meta anymore. The other real big issue is Shajara has no good pairings, and her best is either Ashurbanipal or YSG or Henry. Either of those 3 commanders, all 3 of them are not the most meta. Ashurbanipal, while he's nice to run on the field, isn't game breaking anymore like when he first released, which was about a year ago. He's definitely got power crept quite hard because he was a rally commander, and most rallies get power crept. And that means when you look at the best 3 Archer Marchers, you're looking at a situation of a Zulang with a Herman, and everything else is completely miserable, and you just won't get really good trades with them unless you get super lucky on the open field. And that's the current state, really, of Archer commanders compared to other commanders in general. The other thing to think about is Archers on the open field. We've looked at their commanders are not very good, and generally that translates to the same thing on the open field. Archer commanders on the field are not very amazing either. Cavalry are pretty dominant right now with how powerful Arthur Pendragon is, and the fact that everyone got pretty much a commander swap at the release of Arthur Pendragon made Archers quite getting, like, let's just be realistic, getting destroyed on the open field. Most Archer Marchers will get targeted down by a lot of cavalry and just get annihilated. The amount of Arthur Pendragons is pretty insane. I have one expertise and I don't even run him. I just did it because, I don't know, I could. And I have an expertise Arthur Pendragon and I don't even have a cavalry march. So the amount of people who would have picked him up and expertised him would have been quite insane. To put that into perspective though, Archers don't even come close to winning against an Arthur Pendragon in a 1v1. Even if you have quite good tech, the Arthur is probably going to wreck you. If that Arthur Pendragon has the best combo armaments, you are double screwed. You're going to get absolutely annihilated. So when it comes down to it, we're looking at a very cavalry or currently cavalry dominated open field meta that is just wiping the floor with a lot of Archer commanders. And put that with the fact that even Archers right now are not the most overpowered against infantry already, kind of means that there isn't a very good reason to run Archers. For example, Ragnar Prime with CPO Prime, while it does technically lose to Zulang Herman in most duels, it's generally going to win on the open field because it's more ramped up, it's got more stats, and it's backing the other murder ball, and it's more tanky. So you're not going to be able to get a full dragged on 1v1 battle against a CPO with a Ragnar Prime, which means infantry marchers generally beat Archers already. Put that with the cavalry being absolutely meta dominant, Archers almost serve no role. They cannot be cavalry, obviously. They can't beat infantry, and they're kind of just sitting around on the open field trying to get some kills, but you can't really do it. The only march that even stands a chance is the Zulang with Herman, and even then, that is not the most meta march in the game right now. It is quite far off, to be honest. When Zulang first released, it was easily top meta. It was probably the best march in the game when you put it with Boudica or with a YSG, but nowadays it just isn't at that level, and it's going to get pretty melted pretty fast, especially in a very cavalry dominant meta where we're seeing cavalry marchers absolutely everywhere. This brings me on to the future of Archers. What about them in the near future on the open field? Is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? And quite simply, Archers are actually going to get a lot weaker than they are right now, because they can still somewhat hold their own against infantry. But we've seen from buy key reports, buy key is going to absolutely demolish every single Archer march. Now, these are early testing buy key reports. It could be different in game, but from what we've seen in the ROK tester, buy key is an insanely powerful commander who could just demolish most Archer marches. Buy key with Leo Chair is insanely meta breaking. Buy key with William Wallace is just about as powerful in a 1v1 situation, and it's going to wreck every Archer march. Zulang with Herman lost by like 20,000 or so 7 wounds each time, which is insane. And even once you put buy key with less optimal marches, like running Leo Chair as a primary, I think, buy key ends up still winning by a sizable margin. So this means archers in the future are going to lose quite badly to every single cavalry march generally, and they're going to lose quite badly to the top 3 infantry marches. Liu Che with Alex is going to hold its own quite well. Ragnar Prime with Scipio is going to hold its own quite well against archers, and William Wallace with Baiki is just going to absolutely melt them. So when it comes down to it, archers are not only bad against infantry right now, they're going to get worse against most infantry commanders, which means we're going to expect to see even worse trades for archers. I think it'll become a point where every single archer commander besides Zulang Herman, because of their double AoE, will become obsolete. Henry, YSG, Boudica, Ashurbanipal, and Shajar will be almost non-existent in terms of power level and be pretty much unusable on the open field. And the only ones that you could consider are Zulang and Herman, because they're really, really heavy AoE damage, which can kind of compensate for the fact that they absolutely suck when it comes to taking down proper meta marchers. I was really, really surprised about how archers lost so badly to Baiki. Losing worse than Arthur Pendragon was quite shocking to me. The fact that archers got wiped with Baiki and Arthur Pendragon could hold his own really said to me, we're looking at a situation where archers are not going to be nearly as strong as they once were on the open field, and they're not going to be able to hold their own against the new generation more meta commanders, especially because the last few releases for archers after Zulang have been quite lackluster. We can kind of expect that they're not going to be good. Henry Boudica is very outdated. Ashurbanipal is an average commander. Shajar is quite average as well. I did like her when she first released, but she's been crept out. YSG is way too old, and Herman has been crept out as well. So the last 3 or 4 generations of archers have become quite redundant, whereas when you look at the other troop types, last 4 generations of infantry, for example, Liu Che, Ragnar Prime, have all been pretty decent. The only bad commander has been William, and even then, him with Baiki is probably going to be a solid march once Baiki is officially in the game. When you look at cavalry, pretty much every cavalry commander has held their own. Arthur's been pretty good, Joan's been pretty good, Nevsky's been pretty good, Hao Bing's been pretty good. The only bad commander has probably been Belisarius Prime, and even then, he's okay for a big immutable if you need the debuff. So when we look at it, archers right now are not going to be improving unless something does change. So now this brings me on to what should archers get in the near future if we want them to be meta again, and quite simply, they just need a bloody overpowered commander. If archers can get something ridiculously strong like Arthur Pendragon and Baiki, they're going to be good again. Now, will there be a 3-march murderable good? Definitely not. We're going to see a very, very big gap between the strength of archer commanders, and they're not going to be too amazing. But if we can get a really, really solid archer march, you'll at least have 1 or 2 archer marches you could run. You could run Zulang with the new commander, Herman with the new commander, or Shajar with the new commander if they pair very well. And then you're going to have a very solid murderable to run on the open field. So as long as archers get a really meta commander coming soon, we can expect them to be usable on the field. Now, that doesn't change the fact that Herman isn't going to be the most overpowered, and you probably want to have 2 meta marches at least, but that will still at least allow archers to be more bearable on the field and hopefully counter infantry. Now, what I would hope is something that can demolish Liu Che or Baiki and really hold its own on the open field compared to what we have right now. If archers get another dud commander like Shajar, then we can expect them to get quite demolished and pretty much become unusable over the course of 2025 until their next commander release. The same thing can be said against cavalry. If archers don't get a nice commander that can hold its own somewhat against cavalry meta, then they're going to get absolutely demolished as well and not really hold their own too amazingly. But at least if they can hold their own against infantry and trade slightly negative to cavalry, you'd be able to expect them being a quite good march and at least running somewhat decently on the open field. I think the best way this could be done is if Shajar gets a really, really good pairing, whether it be a primary or a secondary, so either it goes with a mighty healing or it doesn't. What could happen is that they just give a very good commander with Shajar, make Shajar really, really meta with this new commander, and it's very powerful. And then you've got the Zulang Herman, and that's still a pretty average march, but at least it's quite runnable on the open field. It just means archers, in terms of running 3 marches, it would be almost a no-go. But you'll probably also need to get a circle formation to go with your Shajar. So keep that in mind. There's probably going to be a lot of talk about circle formations and circle formation armaments once the new commanders are released. Now, archers for the next couple of months are going to suck really bad, especially against Baiki, and unless they get a double release similar to infantry, they're probably going to get wrecked quite hard. So infantry received Liu Che and also received William Wallace, and then they received Ragnar Prime in the same year. Now, Leo Chair was not in the same year, but Ragnar Prime and CPU and William Wallace were in the same year. So you can see as an example that you could get a double release. We could possibly get an Archer Skill Damage Commander and an Archer Mighty Heal Commander, and then they would be quite sizable and quite good on the open field. But right now, because of how miserable the commanders are, Archers are really poor on the open field, and unless they get a good double release or a really, really good single commander release, they're probably going to rank towards the bottom of most tier lists and most power lists for the next year or so until they get two really, really solid commanders. And that means that infantry and cavalry will need to get poor commanders as well for archers to really catch up. So if you want archers, or if we want archers to be meta again, we have to hope for a very good Mighty Heal commander or a good commander to pair with Shajar, and a solid commander to pair with Zulang that could replace Herman Prime. So if we get those two things in the same year, like infantry got two commanders in the same year, archers could be meta or at least be very good in 2025. If we don't get two, archers will probably be usable if we get one good commander. And if we don't get a single very overpowered or good commander, then archers are going to be completely useless on the open field because you're not going to be able to run them with a lot of different commander pairings. So if you end up stuck with Zulang Herman as the best march, then archers are probably doomed until the next year of commander releases, which will happen mid to late 2026, as most archer commanders release around July to September, which is quite a far time from now. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, I want to ask you guys for a small favor, and that is, please do consider subscribing to the channel. The second there's any Archer Commander news released, or really any Commander news released, I try to make a video on it. Usually I do it a day or even just a few hours after. So if you find these videos helpful, if you want to know more about Archer Commanders, you want to know more about their current meta position, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel. It also supports me, and it's a very small thing you can do, and if you don't like my videos, you could always unsubscribe after. Other than that, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.